everybody, it's Molly Yeh from Girl Meets Farm, and today we're making one of my favorite holiday cookies, Rugelach. They're buttery and flaky, and the dough is a little tangy because there's cream cheese in them. We're gonna be making one dough into 2 cookies with our chocolate halva filling and orange marmalade and walnut filling. Halva is a sesame candy. It is so good. It has this crumbly texture, and when it bakes and intertwines with the chocolate, it's gonna be delicious. I think that we should all taste the halva to make sure that it's okay. Oh yeah, sweet, sesame-y, delicious. Rugelach became a holiday cookie tradition for me when I realized that there are so many Christmas cookies around the holidays. We've got to step up the Hanukkah cookie game. So Rugelach, which is a Jewish cookie, is something that has become somewhat of a tradition for me. And these are inspired by the Rugelach that my mom would make for me growing up. She is the OG Rugelach maker in the family. So if you're baking along with me, make sure that your oven is preheated to 375. Have some baking sheets ready to go that are lined with parchment, and make sure you have an appetite for cookies. So first, grab the bowl of your stand mixer. And if you don't have a stand mixer, you can use a big bowl with an electric hand mixer. And to this bowl, add 2½ cups of all-purpose flour and 1/4 cup of sugar. One thing I like about this dough is that there's actually not that much sugar in it. It's not too sweet, and it really allows the flavors of the filling to shine. Also, add a ½ teaspoon of kosher salt. And those are the dry ingredients. So put it back on your stand mixer, or if you're mixing with a hand mixer, just give it a little mix. Okay. And now grab 1 cup of butter and 8 ounces of cream cheese. Now it's important to have the butter and the cream cheese cold because that's what's gonna help create the flakiness of the Rugelach. You want there to be little bits of butter and cream cheese in the dough still intact because when they bake, they're gonna melt out and create those pockets which give you those nice flakes. So first chop up the butter into little pieces, and to do that, first chop it lengthwise down the center. Flip it over and do the same thing, chopping lengthwise down the center. And now the other way, first chop it in half, and then in half again on both sides, and then cut each of these 4 pieces in half. So you have a bunch of little cubes of butter, and they're all evenly sized. And do the same thing with the other stick of butter. So first chop it lengthwise in half, flip it on the side, chop it lengthwise in half again. And then widthwise, chop it in half. Chop both of those halves in half. And now chop the quarters in half. So now you have a bunch of uniformly sized butter cubes. Use this technique for cutting whenever you're making pie crust, anything where you want the butter to incorporate really evenly. So sprinkle these right over the flour mixture and get an even distribution. You don't want any larger clumps, like if you have 2 pieces stuck together, just break them apart. And scatter them all over the flour. And try to work as quickly as you can so that the butter doesn't soften. And now chop up your cream cheese. Cream cheese is so much softer, it's a little bit more difficult to chop up into those little cubes, so do the best you can. It doesn't need to be perfect. We can just do slightly larger chunks of cream cheese. So to me, the hallmark of a good Rugelach is that slight tanginess which comes from cream cheese. I just love that little bit of sour flavor. It's so good. So pretty much, we're making pie dough, but with cream cheese and a little extra sugar. That's what Rugelach dough is. Now, once your cream cheese is chopped up, distribute these little cubes just like you did the butter. Now that the flour mixture is in the bowl and the butter and the cream cheese is in, turn it on low to let the butter and the cream cheese incorporate. While this is mixing, let's separate our eggs. We're only gonna use 2 egg yolks, not the egg whites. So get 2 bowls, crack an egg, break it apart, and then transfer the yolk back and forth between each half of the shell to let the egg white fall down into this bowl, and then you'll add the egg yolk, to the other bowl. So again, crack the egg in half, separate the two halves of the shells, and then transfer the egg yolk back and forth between the shells so that the egg white falls down and you're left with just the yolk. And if the yolk breaks, that's okay. Just try to get most of it into your yolk bowl. Once the mixture is crumbly, you can add your egg yolks, and then also add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Oh, this looks perfect. Once it comes together in a big clump like this, you can use your hands to finish off bringing it together. So get it off of the mixer. It smells so good. Now use your hands to bring the dough together into a ball and dump it out onto your counter, and you can get rid of your big bowl and the beater at this time. And now, since we're gonna be making 2 different kinds of rugelach, divide the dough in half. And you can just eyeball it and pat these into discs. Patting it out into discs is gonna help make it easier to roll out when it comes time. Now let's grab our plastic wrap. You wanna make sure that they're airtight so that no fridge smells get in. You also don't want the dough to dry out. And this is a dough that you can make up to a few days in advance. Just keep it in the fridge. Now we want our dough to refrigerate for a minimum of 1 hour, so press pause now, come back when you're ready, and when you're back, get your chocolate chips and halva ready for one filling, and the orange marmalade and walnuts ready for the other. All right, let's get started on melting the chocolate for our chocolate halva rugelach. If you want to skip this one and just go straight on to the orange marmalade rugelach with walnuts, you can jump ahead. But if you want to make both like me, I'm here for you. So make sure that your double boiler is set up, and that's a pot of simmering water with a heat-safe bowl set on top of it. And using a double boiler will ensure that your chocolate doesn't burn. Pour 3/4 of a cup of milk chocolate chips into your bowl. And remember how I said that the rugelach dough isn't actually that sweet? This is why I like using milk chocolate, because it has that extra sweetness. Now grab a rubber spatula and stir the chocolate as it melts so that it melts smoothly and evenly. And if you don't want to use a double boiler, you could also melt your chocolate in a microwave. Stir after every 30 seconds until it's smooth. Around the holidays, Nick and I go to at least 3 cookie swaps. So we have boxes of cookies just lying around the kitchen. And Nick always goes for these rugelach. How's your chocolate looking? Is it melted? If it is, you can take the heat off and then go grab half of your dough. Grab a handful of flour and dust your work surface so that the dough doesn't stick. And now we're gonna roll a nice big rectangle out of our dough. Let's dust the top of the dough with flour too. Grab your rolling pin. Or if you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a wine bottle. And now start working the dough, rolling it out, and rotate it every so often to make sure that it's not sticking to your counter. And just work it into a very wide rectangle. And every so often you can give the dough a little wiggle to make sure that it's not sticking to your work surface. And if it is, dust the bottom with a little more flour. So we're going for a rectangle that's 18 inches wide by 9 inches tall. Get out your kitchen rulers. And you can measure. So this is this is 9 inches, and I have a little ways to go to make it wider. The way that my mom makes rugelach is she rolls the dough into a big circle and then cuts pie wedges and then rolls those up into crescents. So if you really like this recipe, you can try making those shapes as well. All right, how is your dough looking? Is it about 9 by 18? If it is, you can start spreading the chocolate onto the dough. So grab an offset spatula and plop the chocolate right onto the dough. How good does that look? Resist the urge to eat all of the chocolate right now. And now use your offset spatula to spread it in a thin, even layer, but I want you to leave a 1-inch border along the top. And that's gonna be used to seal the roll of cookies shut. And work kind of quickly too, because the cold dough does have the ability to firm up the thin sheet of chocolate. So just spread it back and forth. How gorgeous does that look? Isn't this process satisfying? I love making rugelach as much as I love eating rugelach. Spread it all the way to the bottom edge and the side edges, and then leave that border up top. Okay, now grab your halva, just sprinkle it all over the chocolate. And if you guys don't have halva, you can skip it, or you can add something else. You can add chopped nuts, or even toasted sesame seeds. And now we're gonna make an egg wash. So grab a small bowl and an egg. Crack the egg into your bowl. And then add a splash of water and beat it up. And this egg wash is gonna act as the glue that's gonna hold our roll of rugelach shut. And now let's grab a pastry brush and brush a thin layer on that exposed edge of the dough. I'm so excited to eat these. And now, starting at the edge closest to us, let's roll up the dough into a nice tight jelly roll. And this is going to make a really pretty swirly shape, because ultimately what we're gonna do is chop this roll into our individual rugelach cookies. Now when you get to the end, you want it to sit seam side down. So let the whole roll sit on top of the seam and give it a little squeeze so that it can seal shut. And now what we wanna do is carefully transfer this roll to one of our baking sheets. How did you do? If it's just too big to handle, you can always cut it in half and then transfer both halves to the cookie sheet. And now let's refrigerate this until the chocolate firms up, and that's gonna help us get really clean, beautiful swirls when we cut our cookies. It's time for our second flavor of rugelach. Let's make our marmalade filling. Grab a small bowl and some orange marmalade and add 3/4 cup to your bowl. And now let's spice it up for the holidays. Let's add a teaspoon of cinnamon, and this is something you can just eyeball. And gotta have cloves with orange. A little bit of cloves go a long way, so just add a pinch or two. Are you smelling that? It smells just like the holidays. And now mix to combine. Super easy. Now grab the other half of your dough. And just like we did with the chocolate halva rugelach, we're gonna roll this out into a big rectangle. Dust your surface with a little flour so that the dough doesn't stick. And the top of the dough too. And now roll it out. So when I went off to college for music school, my mom would send me huge care packages full of her rugelach. And it was the best stress reliever after a long day of practicing xylophone. It always reminded me of home. Gradually roll out your rectangle and be sure to roll it out evenly so that it's all an even thickness. And don't be afraid to dust it with as much flour as it takes so that the dough doesn't stick. We're ready to add the filling. So grab another offset spatula, or you can clean off your chocolatey one. And spread a thin, even layer of the marmalade right onto the dough. Just like we did before with the chocolate, all the way to each side and to the bottom, but leave that top border. And now grab your toasted chopped walnuts. These are gonna add great nuttiness and texture, and sprinkle them all over the marmalade. If you don't like nuts, you can skip them, or you can use any nut you want. Just make sure to toast them first to bring out the flavors. And now brush with egg wash. So a thin, even layer on this top exposed edge will be just enough to seal the rugelach shut. So if you scrolled ahead, this egg wash is just 1 large egg beaten with a splash of water. And this is gonna act as the glue that holds our rugelach rolls shut. And now starting with the edge closest to you, roll this up. And this is gonna lock all of the filling in. And then when we slice up our cookies, they're gonna be beautiful swirls. If it's sticking to your work surface, you can just help it up with your fingers or a knife or an offset spatula. And now place the roll seam side down, give it a little squeeze to seal it. Grab your cookie sheet and gently transfer the roll to the cookie sheet. And now let's stick this in the fridge to firm up. And in the meantime, our chocolate roll should be firm enough to slice and then bake. Oh yeah, if it's firm to the touch, it is ready. So transfer it back to your cutting board. And before we slice, we've got to decorate it. It is the holidays. So first, brush with your egg wash again. And this is gonna make the top shiny, and it's also gonna help our sprinkles stick. Sprinkle the tops with a little bit of flaky salt. This little bite of salt is just the perfect touch with the chocolate. And now, grab your sprinkles and go to town. These sprinkles are so pretty. Just sprinkle them liberally right on top, and the egg wash is gonna help the sprinkles stick. Just pile them on. And now we're gonna slice our roll into cookies. So grab a sharp knife and cut 1.5-inch slices. I got my ruler out for this. If they're too thin, they could topple over while they're baking in the oven. So it's best to err on the side of too wide than too thin. Oh, look at that perfect roll. Isn't that gorgeous? Let's keep on going. I think this is my favorite part, other than eating them. And now transfer the rolls to your baking sheet and allow at least 1 inch in between each of them so that they have room to bake evenly on all sides. Let's do 3 rolls of 3. Rows. I've been saying rolls so much. Now these are gonna bake at 375 for about 24 minutes until they're golden brown on top. And while these bake, we can keep working on our orange marmalade rugelach. So just like we did with the chocolate halva rugelach, we're gonna brush the top of this with egg wash. And it should be pretty cool to the touch as well. So brush the top with egg wash. And now the top of these will get a little bit of salt, just like the chocolate halva. I've got to have a little salt on my sweets. And some sugar. This just adds the perfect extra hit of sweetness. And grab your ground walnuts. And pile them on top. And these are gonna get nice and toasty in the oven. And they'll add really beautiful crunch on top. The flavor combination in this rugelach, orange, clove, cinnamon, and walnuts, it's gonna be so good. And just like we did with the chocolate halva rugelach, let's slice into 1.5-inch slices. These are gonna bake up so beautifully. Are you guys excited as I am to eat these? Oh, this one at the end is gonna be a massive one. Dibs on that one. Let's transfer these to the baking sheet. Allow about 1 inch of space in between all of them so that they can get baked evenly on all sides. And now these are gonna bake at 375 for about 24 minutes until they're golden brown all over. It already smells like the holidays in here. I love cookie season. Does it smell so good in your kitchen right now? It smells so good in my kitchen. We should check on the rugelach. These look perfect. Oh, I'm smelling that butter, smelling the cinnamon. Can't wait to eat these. I love the way the chocolate swirls stayed intact and the sprinkles got slightly melty. So beautiful. And the orange marmalade is so shiny and pretty. Yum! Our rugelach look incredible. 2 different cookies from one dough. Shall we taste them? Both? Yes. I don't even know. I feel like, they're so buttery and flaky, and the outside is crisp, but the insides are still soft, just the way I like them. Oh man, I hope you guys enjoy these as much as I'm enjoying them right now. Happy holidays.